Up next, the story of one of the most mysterious, otherworldly songs of the 80s. With an exotic chorus partly sung in French, it's a song that just really hypnotizes you as a listener. Released by one of the foremost icons of 1984, the song went all the way to number 4 on the charts, and it was one of many dominoes to fall for this legendary artist in his career. Probably his best song is told by the Guitarist, and the co-creator of the song, next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if music lifts your soul, you're going to want to subscribe below to our channel right now so you never miss an episode of our daily features, stories of the song straight from the artists. And make sure to check us out on Patreon to become an insider with us. Now it's time for another episode of our series, Revelations, where featured artists reveal just rare stories about their greatest songs, insight that you won't get anywhere else. On this installment of Revelations, I'm just elated to share part of a very recent Zoom interview that I did with one of the greatest guitarists of the rock era, the ultra supersonic virtuoso Steve Stevens, who was the foil to Billy Idol throughout his peak, co-writing many of Billy's songs, some of his greatest compositions, including the story of today's hit, a song that's chorus is sung in English and French, the satisfyingly peculiar Eyes Without a Face, from 1984's classic album Rebel Yell. Eyes Without a Face. Steve Stevens wrote the music and Billy Idol wrote the lyrics, and the story of how it came together is just very insightful. This one's going to be a classic for sure. As we go into this interview with Steve Stevens, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the brand that I always wear wherever I go. When you go to Zenni.com, you're able to do virtual try-ons. This is where you can see how the eyewear is going to look on you and make sure that, it matches your face with Zenni's virtual mirror feature. You can see how you look before you purchase. It's a great deal. Check it out today at Zenni.com. Here's Steve with the story.
Eyes Without a Face is one of the greatest songs of the 80s. Second single from Rebel Yell, number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, smash all over the world. This is another track with just a dark, mysterious complexion that's particularly strange for a ballad. I mean, your guitar work on this song, the solo especially, gave the song more substance, more texture. What was your inspiration created the music for Eyes Without a Face?
Oddly enough, it didn't come from a dark place at all. When during Rebel Yell, I was living in my parents' basement in Kew Gardens, Queens. And I had a little radio, and the only station, because it was in the basement, the only station I could get was the oldie station. CBS FM at that point would play Frankie Valli. All of the 50s doo-wop bands and things like that. I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and a lot of those bands have a chord progression. It's called 1-4-5-7. Any musician will tell you that's those standard 50s style chord changes. His dream, 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 dream. Earth angel, earth angel. I thought, wow, I started to hear some of these singers, and I went, wow, they're all kind of crooners like Billy, because he wasn't the Robert Plant type of singer. He was more the Jim Morrison. Traced our pleasures here, dug our treasures there. Fogerty. Susie Q, baby, I love you. Susie Q. Elvis, certainly, more of a baritone. So. Falling in love with you. And I heard that in these songs, I went, wow, Billy Idol could sing one of these kind of songs. So I kind of came up with the chord progression, and I inverted them a little bit. And we were in rehearsal, and I came into rehearsal, and I'm just tinkering around with the chords. And Billy goes, "What's that?" I go, "Yeah, it's like a standard 50s doo-wop thing." He goes, I go, "But I'm playing them in sevenths and, moving them around a little bit, giving them a little bit of sadness to it. The chords were a little bit happy the way they were doing it. So I injected a little bit of melancholiness to it. I used to have Billy used to have those yellow legal pads, and he'd have lyrics, and God, I don't know how he deciphered what he had. It was like he could go through them and find, oh, I think I have something that fits that. And I guess he had seen this film, this French film, Eyes Without a Face. Had written lyrics, and once again, we sat there, and within a half hour, he had the melody and the title and everything, and it was just based around these 4 chords, and we weren't sure what we had because he had never done a ballad, and we were unsure, but it was good. And then when Keith came in, we said, we don't know what we have, but it's pretty good. And Keith said, oh yeah, it's got this atmosphere about it. Let's keep going. We just finessed it and kept moving it along, and we came up with the middle section, the guitar. And I said, it can't just be this mellow ballad all the way through. I said, that's not Billy Idol. We've got to throw a curveball in there. So I said, give me a couple of minutes and I'll just play over that middle section. Because once again, we always had these middle sections for remixes. I added the heavy guitar part, and I remember coming back to the control room. This was back when we didn't think of putting the amplifier head in the control room. So we were always on the other side of the glass, and I came back in, and they were all hooping and hollering. Like, it's great, Oh, okay, I guess it worked. So that was, I always had I could always tell when something worked or not, because I either go back in the control room and everybody's like that, or they're like that. Okay. Good, it's a keeper.
Perry Lister singing backup vocals. Of course, she also sang backup vocals on Hot in the City and others. Singing in French, that brings like an innocent melancholy to the song. It's just really, like you said, atmospheric. The movie from 1960, it's just cool how that all came together. Did he kind of envision that as you were arranging the song, that she would sing that in French, or how did that come together?
I'm sure that the French idea came because the film was French. But those two would come up with concepts and ideas, and he'd come back in the next day and just go, oh, Perry's going to come in and sing the title in French. Okay, every time it would work. They were very good at visualizing ideas that were different, and once again, it made the song different than everything else that was out there, because we definitely, okay, if we're going to do a ballad, it's not really even a ballad. I don't like to say it's but it's considered mellow or whatever. But it was always, we have to do something to make it unique to Billy Idol. We can't just do Stairway to Heaven or, that wouldn't be Billy Idol. So these ideas would get thrown in, and it was certainly exciting for me and Keith, because these were very creative. The two of them were very creative.
As you talk about the crooner, that is cool, because I thought about how he sings that song just in the last few minutes, just thinking about it in my head, and it does sound like kind of a throwback there. But then when you throw that iconic guitar solo in there, and that brings that edge to that song. How did that come about? Because that's explosive, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we just, once again, we couldn't just have a ballad. We had to have something that reminded them, hey, it's still Billy Idol. It's still the Rebel Yell guy, That's a way for us to kind of keep the rock and roll element of it, And I would also say that the fact that Billy sings in a lower register, I had to construct my guitar parts in a way that would complement that, as opposed to the guys who are, more guitar players that were more in the metal genre, because their singers are singing much higher. In a different register, so their guitar parts tend to be a little bit different. Mine are more rhythmic based and they're more married to the drums and bass than some of the metal guys, you know. Because I'm part of that team as opposed to something that's that the singer is going to be able to cut through. It was always very important that we came up with parts that Billy's voice could cut through.
The yearning verses slowly build emotion to that heart-wrenching chorus. It relieves that emotional tension. Your eyes without a in such a cathartic manner. Like I said, one of my favorites of the decade. Now, I read that the guitar solo was not originally planned.
In that song, it was, like I said, we'd have these 32 bars in the middle of the song. We didn't quite know what we were going to do with it. But once I put the rhythm guitars over it, then it was, now we have to have a guitar solo. Okay, but we're going to have the guitar with backwards reverb to make it a sonic assault rather than just, the idea was never to just put a guitar solo on it for the sake of having a guitar solo. What's the point? If it doesn't need it, don't put it in. But if I can create something really cool that's going to enhance it, great. And as I said, we had an incredible studio, and it was inspiring. And I had Dave Whitman, an incredible engineer. So any idea that I could even remotely imagine could be realized, and it was never a struggle. These parts, sometimes you work on an album, and I've been in that situation where you're trying to get something to work, and guitar part's not quite working, or the sound doesn't work. With Rebel Yell, everything worked. It's one of those few examples of a record where every idea worked. I wish that happened more often. It doesn't.
Eyes Without a Face, your guitar work on that is so cinematic. I mean, that's why I think they need to use it in more movies and TV, because it's just like you said, atmospheric. It just puts you in a place,
right?
Especially that end part.
And I wonder why I don't despise.
The video on MTV was directed by David Mallet. That was nominated for an MTV award as well.
Yeah, I was always happy to do videos. I mean, I love doing the live performance videos. Those were always my favorite, because that's what I grew up, seeing rock video, rock films or whatever. The conceptual ones those were Billy's ball game. He would work with the director on that and just, okay, Steve, show up at so-and-so, and just play your guitar, So, but they were always fun to do, Like I said, there was so many creative people involved, and, and I'm still friends with a lot of the people that we did videos with. And camera DP is the guy that worked on all of those videos, is still a close friend of mine, and, met so many great people during that period.
Well, final thoughts on that particular song, Eyes Without a Face, all these years later.
I still enjoy playing it. It's amazing that you meet, now with getting to do meet and greets, and you'll meet people that song has such a meaning to a lot of people who have maybe shared it with people that have passed on in their life, or it has substance and depth to it that people like. That song has inspired a lot of people who've had troubled times, or I can't tell you how many times people who have battled cancer have told me that song really helped them get through, or that record helped them get through their chemo or whatever. And I now when we play to an audience and we play some of these iconic songs, now they come and, fans and now have kids, or they're sharing it with their kids. And that's what I did with my dad. I didn't come from a household where it was, my dad listened to whatever was Benny Goodman. He listened to, all the same stuff that I did. He was accepting of it. He loved rock and roll. And so I love seeing that when I see a dad or a mom who's sharing the music with the kid, or son or daughter, and they're, hey, they're getting their first guitar. What should they get? It's just what an awesome experience.
Later, when I ask you about Dirty Diana, my 9-year-old has loved that song. He's loved that song since he was 4. When I told him a couple days ago that I was going to be interviewing the guitarist who played Dirty Diana, he freaked out. He
Oh, wow. How cool. Yeah, that's a perfect example. I mean, music does affect people, and it is an important thing in people's lives. And it's so crazy to say, you forget that you can't really hold it. It's not a physical thing. It's just something that goes through the air. But there are songs that to this day, that I hear that bring me back to my childhood. And you can almost taste, touch, and feel exactly where you were at that point. To have people have that kind of experience or with anything that I've been involved in, any of the music. And, that's why we do it. That's why that inspires us.
It's a time machine, man. It's a time machine. And the only other thing that can do that is smell, scents.
Yes.
But
oh, yeah.
Scents aren't readily available like music is. And music, like you talked about your dad, my dad passed away a year and a half ago, but those memories that we had, because he introduced me to all this music, and they last for the long haul.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times people say, I remember my dad, I put on Rebel Yell, my dad be banging on the wall, shut that, slow that, what is that crap, who's that guy, and now when they look back at it, it's a great memory to them. They wish they still had their dad banging on the wall, So it's like, it's all great.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Steve Stevens and Billy Idol and this 80s classic, really all-time classic. What are your memories of this song and this album? If you like our videos, we invite you to subscribe below to be a part of our community. To get Billy Idol's music and his merch, click on our links below. And to get even more content, to get insider access, to be a part of a very special community, look us up on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe out there.